Hello and welcome to Politics Today. I'm Farhan Dogar. We have been discussing various issues. For example, India-Pakistan confrontation. We have discussed also the law and order situation in the country as well, and international politics, including Pakistan's own role in various aspects of politics. But today we are going to talk about something that is very close to my own heart, and that is economic prosperity of this country. Of course, we have been talking about economics and CPEC and so many other things for past many months. But finally, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor has been formally inaugurated. We saw the first shipment taking off from there. That is one good news. And then there are other aspects of economy as well. The appreciation keeps pouring in from various international organizations. The head of IMF was here in Pakistan a little while ago, but we also saw the World Bank telling us that Pakistan's lot is improving, Pakistan's economy is doing better, poverty has fallen, and the indication or indicators for the growth are good as well. It was projected to be 5.4 in the next year. So these are interesting developments. I'm calling them interesting because when you look at the context, when there was so much talk that Pakistan is somehow isolated, we seem to be doing well. But is that all? Should we stop there? There are other questions we have highlighted in this program repeatedly. For example, the issue not of documentation, tax documentation, but documentation as in records. We still don't have a census in this country. We don't know how many are we. Every number that you see is based on some kind of projection. So all these issues and the future of job creation in Pakistan, because if you want to alleviate poverty in the country, you have to start by introducing as many jobs as possible. In order to help us understand all these matters, we have an eminent panel which is quite regular. They have been participating in this program whenever we discussed economics. We have with us Dr. Shamail Dawood Saab, member board of investment. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Next to him is Shaban Khalid Saab, former head of Islamabad Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program.
Thank you, sir.
And next to him is Zia Bande Saab, an economist and also from Prime Institute. Thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Dr. Shamail Dawood, is it enough that Pakistan finally has inaugurated an economic corridor, or do you think that Pakistan economy has much more potential?
Definitely, I think this is a great, you can say, time, because it is iconic for the first shipment to go through and the corridor to start actually working. And we have seen that the Gwadar port is also active. So I think that is definitely the beginning. But obviously the full, you can say, the full layout of CPEC, as we know, is long-term, and other than the infrastructure and the energy and all those things, there's still, as we know, we are still waiting for a lot of those projects to start, you can say, dishing out,
develop in any case,
specifically the energy, and then obviously the industrial zones and so forth and so on. So a lot is yet to come, but this is just the, you can say, the breaking the ice. And it's definitely, it sends very strong signals to all those internationally who don't want it to succeed. Okay. So in that sense, it's iconic.
So you think that there are people who don't want it to succeed?
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely, it's not, I don't think it's no more a hidden issue.
Countries or a country?
I guess there are you can say there are competing interests. Okay. So there are competing interests, geopolitical interests, which definitely go hand in hand, and they're intertwined, and that results in the friction and the sorts of hurdles that have been created. So this definitely is kind of the, you can say, door opening. And inshallah ta'ala, I think as we go forward, there will be teething problems, but eventually, as the government is committed, the establishment is committed, so together I think they will be able to overcome these difficulties and we'll safeguard it.
But if you recall, my question was not just about CPEC, it was about Pakistan's economic potential. And let me take this question to Shaban Khalid Saab. Shaban Khalid Saab, we have discussed economy of Pakistan for so many times in this program. Do you think that CPEC is enough, or we should be, diversifying the portfolio?
I don't think CPEC is enough. I think, from what I understand of your question, no, it's not going to be enough. We need to take that as just one stepping stone to our economic progress. But there's a long way to go, because we've, in the last, I would say, decade and a half, we've not been doing well. If anything, we've been regressing rather than progressing economically.
Why would you say that? World Bank doesn't agree with you, IMF doesn't agree with you, international rating agencies don't agree with you.
Inflation, only now that the oil prices have come down, we've had inflation in control. Jobs, manufacturing sector, agriculture. So if you look at all those sectors, none had progressed until the time this government took over. And I think for the 7 years to 8 years before that, everything was downhill for the most part. And obviously the revenue base of the government was very, very weak. And what started then was the government borrowing at very high interest rates, whether that was initially was from local banks. Now they've moved that trend to international donors and sources. So we have to consider everything. The bigger holistic picture is, to my understanding, our revenue streams are still very weak. Our borrowing is exceptionally high. I think the borrowing, I would go to the extreme of saying the borrowing is high to the tune of our next 2 to 3 generations having to pay if you don't put the house in order now.
Yeah, but do you think that it is fair to focus only on borrowing? Because there are positive sides as well in the economy. And the problem, whenever I switch on television and I look at any program in the private sector, what I come across is only emphasis on 2 things. Corruption, most of it imagined or past. The second thing is borrowing. Nobody is talking about, this silent movement towards betterment in the economy.
No, as I was coming to that, but I was also highlighting some of the challenges that we face. But having said that, I mean, there are great opportunities.
Is it not a commentary on our national discourse that whenever we talk about the potentials, we end up talking about challenges rather than the possibilities?
It is only fair and constructive criticism calls for me to highlight both. And I started with
Let me bring in Zia Bande Sahab as well. So your take on the potential
on the same issues, First of all, let me start with the question that does anybody knows that these 150 containers which has come over here, Gwadar, belong to which area? From China. Which companies have basically shipped that? Nobody have asked this question right now, because I'm raising this question. It is linked with exactly with our potential in order to link it with the Chinese economy.
Would you answer your question as well?
Yes, now I will answer the question. The point is this, that when you read about this economic corridors, what is the starting point and what is the ending point? I'm talking about Chinese media. So they always use Kashgar, Gwadar. Now, Kashgar Gwadar is about 3,200 kilometers.
That's true.
That's the distance which they are covering. And this economic corridor, if you read the Chinese, I mean to say side, the literature which is coming from the Chinese side, it is basically meant for the Xinjiang province. And if you look at the Xinjiang's economy, it's an economy of 23 million people, economy which has a size of $150 billion, an economy which has a trade of $19 billion. Now, what they are exporting, that is important. That area is producing 60% of the cotton of China, 40% of the coal reserves, 1/3 of the oil, and 1/5 of the gas. Now, that is very important for us to understand that why Chinese are doing these things. As of today, bulk of this trade is concentrated with Central Asia.
Okay.
Over 70% of this, which is into garments, into cloth, into shoes, into electronic items, is going through Kyrgyzstan and Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan.
Okay.
Okay. And that amount which is going over there, they have got the largest land port over there.
Okay.
Now Chinese are diversifying. They're using Pakistan for that. And this 150 containers which are coming from there belongs to basically Xinjiang province.
Okay. That point highlighted. Now let us talk about the people who are living this side of
This
the border.
side. Now it means that we have to link with that economy in order to gather our potential.
Okay.
We are a cotton economy.
So,
So Xinjiang is a cotton economy.
let me rephrase the question. Is
Okay.
Pakistan going to be one hit wonder? Are we supposed to be one trick pony? Or we can diversify it as well? Because when you talk about trade, China is not the only country that we have on our border. I'm not talking about India. Leave India aside for a second. Talk about Iran. Talk about Central Asia through Afghanistan. Even Central Asia through, Iran. There are multiple possibilities. Why is it that we are not discussing them at all in this country? Why is it that we have a port, and that is a deep sea port, but we have an unbroken coastal line? Why are we not talking about developing more of the similar ports in the country?
You don't need so many ports. I mean to say the ports you have are sufficient for it. You have
Okay.
2 ports in Karachi. Now one port is coming in Gwadar.
Okay.
I think so the sort
It
of a
has come.
traffic.
Yeah.
The sort of a traffic you have a trade of about $70 billion. The $70 billion is sufficient to be handled by these 3 ports.
Okay.
So what you need to understand is more efficiency in the system.
Don't you believe in planning ahead?
I-
Creating more
If you have traveled to Karachi and if you have traveled on national highway, the roads which are going into the port side, just look at the traffic and the potholes on those roads. And you travel to China on the similar ports and you look at the quality of roads and the quality of infrastructure. Basically, that's where we are lacking. Our efficiency in bringing the item from the factory to the port. That is a
you
missing.
highlighted something very interesting. You said that the Chinese side keeps reporting about the details, or maybe our side is not picking it up. We are not focusing on the details. This country remains, most of it, or at
Yeah.
least the media, oblivious to the actual nitty-gritties of the deals and everything. Why is that?
Because we are more emotional into relationships.
Okay.
Now, as of today, anybody knows that Xinjiang, how much trade they do with Kyrgyzstan, what are their opportunities over there, what are the companies in Xinjiang with whom we can work.
Okay.
Nobody's talking. You are yourself is
I
telling.
don't connect the dots. You're saying we are emotional. So be it. That's good. But when you're talking about potentialities, what stops you from researching things? There's a possibility. You can go to Kazakhstan, you can go to Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, so many areas, even through Central Asia, to Europe as well.
Actually, Pitafi, you have to understand the whole world is a political economy. When you're working on a political economy, businessman has a limitation. Or we have 2 businessmen sitting over here.
Okay.
Now, it means it has to be led by the political side. That we can lead, we can make space for them in these areas where they can work.
I love this pass the parcel bit about policy making. No, I'm not going to do it. You are supposed to do it.
I think the
Please,
state has to do it. That includes the government as well as all the players from the private sector. So as a state, we have to do it together.
As a people.
As a people, as a nation. Now, definitely, I agree with Zia's comment on the aspect that are we really prepared to take the advantage of this connectivity that is connecting Kashgar all the way to Gwadar. In order to be ready, other than once we have the road networks, we have the energy. Obviously, we've heard about various economic zones, special economic zones, industrial zones that are going to be spread across the country. But we don't see the sort of, you can say, downstream, the readiness or the development initiated at that level. So, for example, if we are talking about different regions, are they really working? So, different chambers, different business associations, or various, you can say, national level textiles or other sectors, are they really starting to work, and how they're going to connect? Are they on the same page with the government? What I see is that that dialogue is not there, that sense of direction isn't there, and so we are not really starting to gear up in that direction.
Why not?
I think it is being led by the government, and the government somehow is right now somehow busy with the early harvest, coal-fired projects and the energy projects, or the initiation of different projects, or the infrastructure projects. They're right now stuck with that.
And forgive me, Dr. Shamal, you're talking about the government's limitation. You're talking about the investor classes.
But they are the pivotal.
My concern is not with people or institutions. My concern at this moment is with the imagination. If something this big comes to my city, my town, I will be thrilled, and I will be the first person to report it, highlight it, how it impacts the people's lives.
Basically,
all I see is Chinese ambassador, and it was a very heartwarming sight, because I've been to Gawada many a times. Chinese ambassador is distributing books among kids.
Yeah.
That was heartwarming.
But this is the ground reality, that we have lacked that innovation, that forward thinking, that imagination. And one side of that is our dwindling exports. We've been looking at why our exports have been going down, despite so many factors that are favoring them. I mean, the government has been trying to come out with various incentives, but the ground reality is that one of the main factors is that we are not as competitive as we should be, other than the input cost, which probably my other friends would give more light on that. But other than the input cost, the issue is innovation. They really need to, our industry need to come out with more diversified portfolios. Look at our portfolio. If we go back 3 decades, our portfolio is still the same. We have not diversified. We have not added more lines. We have not added more products. We have not increased our product variety, and that is why we're not really as competitive.
And who's supposed to take initiative in that context?
I am saying that's why initially my comment was that we have to work together hand in hand.
Okay.
But the pivotal role in this case, for as far as the economic corridor is concerned, is the government. There is obviously the planning commission, and they're leading that. So I think they can definitely act together with all other departments, and obviously being on the board, I think the board of investment also can play a great role in that, and the private sector from the chambers of commerce, etc., can play a great role. And we really need to start working so that we are prepared and we can take advantage of those ideas that Zia is talking about.
That's quite relevant. That is quite important, actually, because when I look at any country's portfolio, I get paperwork, research, so many things that tell me what are the regions or areas where I can actually invest. When you talk about Pakistan, BOI, other institutions,
we talk about potential, but beyond potential, we really don't have the depth of work. So it's a little shallow. We need to really start digging deep and coming up with really workable, feasibilities, projects, etc., so that we can really entice those serious investors, because now the multiplier effect is starting to pick up. But when those individuals, those investments, those large corporations come into Pakistan, they really need to see the real work. Otherwise, then things will not work, and this opportunity will dissipate.
Right. Shaban Khalid Saab, you actually represent the manufacturing sector, Ithat Steel. But regardless of where you come from, my concern is that the private sector, especially the manufacturing, the areas that have been making profit, they don't invest A, in R&D, B, in any kind of understanding or comprehension of the potentialities of the economy.
I would beg to differ.
Okay.
And
so you are going to refer me to any website, any document, any book?
I will tell you why I say that. The first step is going to explore. I mean, before you get into research, you have to explore. In the kind of numbers that I see of entrepreneurs going to China to explore the market and seeing what's happening and why this CPEC corridor is very important, I if not off the back of the head, and if I'm not mistaken, I would not be hesitant in saying the volumes have increased fourfolds to maybe sixfolds. The number of entrepreneurs going to China, trying to explore and see what opportunities they have. I was in China just last month, and I met a few Pakistanis myself who were there only to see what's happening and how they can tap into the potential, number one. Number two, I belong to the steel sector, as you mentioned rightly. The entire steel sector is now in expansion mode.
Okay.
I would see that the Pakistan steel capacity would go to twice the size of what it is now in the next 2 years, and would not be surprised if it goes into 3 times the size in the next 5 years, number one. One does not need to underestimate the textile industry in Pakistan either. It is very innovative. They have the state-of-art machinery.
I'm glad that you're highlighting the sectors that I already know about. My concern at this moment is that you are not pointing out the possible sectors. Maybe.
I will point out the new sectors.
Technology incubators. How many do we have?
So technology incubator is a whole different, and oh yes, we do.
Okay, in
yes,
Karachi
we do.
one?
No, we have one in Islamabad. So now, I'm not sure if you know of this program started by HEC. Every major university has to have an incubation center.
Okay.
Number one.
And is it
and even in the private sector now, there's a big demand of people wanting to invest in new technology. But remember, incubation centers is mostly driven by technology firms. But is that happening? Yes, it's happening. I can give you one example of how, I'm not sure if you know of the online retail sector, Daraz. They've been bought over, I think, by Rocket, which was a German company. So yes, there's a lot of innovation that's happening. And if you see the trend of online shopping 2 years ago versus what it is now, it's changed drastically. Their payment models, even despite the fact that we don't have PayPal in Pakistan, we still have payment models which work. So as far as technology sector is concerned, I can assure you there's a lot of movement that's happening in the technology sector also. Logistics, one for one. There's been a considerable improvement in the logistics sector in Pakistan, whether that's equipment, that's trucks or whatever, professionalism, and so on and so forth. So that has also improved. You also have to understand, even with the energy sectors, for instance, Engro is going into Tharkol. That's a massive investment by the private sector.
That is massive investment, but do we have that kind of bodies that crunch numbers and they know what is the actual output, Bande Saab? Or we keep on speculating? You struck gold here. So I might also strike or come across some kind of gold, if not gold, something else closer to it.
Tafi, one thing you need to understand, Pakistan is a market economy, and as far as the freedom of doing business, comparable economies, Pakistan has got quite a lot of freedom. And what is important for businesses to flourish is to have a freedom. As Shaban has rightly pointed out, these people are resilient, they are street smart, and they take the opportunities. What they require
Can we compare this freedom with what is called ease of doing business?
Yes, you can compare it with the ease of doing business. And obviously, there are certain indicators where we are maybe lagging. There are certain indicators which we are better. But if we compare ourselves with India or we compare ourselves with Indonesia, we are not that bad enough in order to have the freedom. What is important to understand for us is this, that domestic investment has one capacity in a globalized economy. What is important, the synergy comes when you have that foreign element also coming in.
Okay.
Unfortunately, in Pakistani case, is not the lack of information, is basically the perception which you have. Now, in the last year, Pakistan was able to attract $900 million of foreign investment.
Okay.
Now, in the same year, Malaysia was able to attract $17 billion of economy, foreign investment. Your Thailand was able to attract $12 billion. Likewise, Vietnam. Now, if we're talking of numbers, what do you think, that Pakistanis have got less talent? No. Now here what the political leadership, and I'm addressing everyone into it on the political side, they have to understand that what sort of a political perception we are building up. Besides Chinese, how many investors are coming in Pakistan?
Okay.
You were correctly right, that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like in Malaysia, it's not only Chinese
Actually,
which are
my concern is not with the basket. I don't mind, placing everything in one basket. My concern at this moment is there are areas that we are not exploring. And there are other countries that can benefit you and that can benefit from Pakistan's manufacturing, Pakistan's consumption, Pakistan's trade, Pakistan's exports.
These are the
And we are not exploring them.
Look, Bitafi, these numbers are available even to foreigners.
Okay.
Okay, it's not like that they are some state secret and nobody knows about the Pakistani potential. The question is this, that why people are not coming? As Shaban said, people are working. We have success stories coming up locally where people are selling their companies to abroad, I mean to say venture capital fund. But the question is that at the similar time, the similar venture capital funds, how many companies they are buying in China? How many companies they are buying in Thailand? How many companies they are buying in India? Now, there where we compare ourselves, and there where we lack that political, I mean to say perception. I'm not saying support, the political understanding of the global economy, how you are going to place yourself in the global economy.
That's very true, Bandesa, but I was not saying that any number is a state secret. What I feel is maybe we have lost interest in putting together all the numbers. We don't have the capacity to actually put them together, and that's why we don't have the right kind of indicators.
No, sir. It's not like that. The economy is, I mean to say, the entrepreneurs are resilient enough.
Okay.
They're working in a very adverse circumstances. We should salute these businessmen. They're even in these circumstances, they're staying in this country, they're putting money,
Qualify
they're expanding.
that. How adverse? Can you qualify that?
No, adverse, when I have already highlighted it, that adverse, it means to say the political image of the country.
Okay.
Where you are not getting the visas, where you cannot travel around freely into the countries and market yourself out there. I mean, so they are the real problems. We have to call a spade a spade.
Okay,
Why we
Pakistanis
are
are not getting visa abroad?
Yes,
while traveling?
Pakistanis are facing difficulties in traveling abroad. People for the technical side, if they want to move out, they are not getting visas in order for their capacity building. So they are the real issues. I mean to say.
Why is it that I'm hearing it for the first time? Because mostly I thought that people who want to travel abroad, they can.
Yeah. I just want to highlight a different point on a tangent to this. I think one of the issues, as you rightly mentioned, and which I think Zia is alluding to, is the ease of doing business. So when IMF or some other international agencies are giving us good rating and our rating has improved, so from 50,000 feet we are looking good. But it is on the ground, where the difficulties are. And why the business or foreign direct investment hasn't done as well, because when I am an investor, I have the opportunity to go to Myanmar or Vietnam or other Southeast Asia or South Asian countries. I will compare what are the hurdles in making my profitability, repatriation, and enforcement of contract.
Okay.
A lot of for many years, I think we've been talking about law and order. Definitely law and order is one important element when people travel or they want to make sure that their assets are safe. But one of them, I think another, if you do a weighted average, and I cannot give you right now the numbers, but I think that if you really look into it, this is a major factor where the decision goes or the decision maker takes this into account. So this is why a lot of that foreign direct investment doesn't come in. Now I want to link this point to the economic corridor. While the government is laying down infrastructure, the road network, this is great. People are going to go forth and it's going to open up and connect the country, both up country, down country. That is fine. When we go into the economic zones, which are going to be run by government or some intermediary, if in the past the government has not been successful in running those projects, efficiently, why would they be successful now? And why would they get those dividends that they should? So the message that I want to give from this statement is that if we do not have our act together, if we do not go down to that level and get our house in order, then even though we would be getting that investment, we would not be able to take those dividends and those efficient outputs that we
Dr.
should
Jamal Daud, you have to understand that we constantly talk about the importance of reforms. Nobody is saying that there shouldn't be any reform.
But then nobody's
But
doing it.
when you are repeatedly saying, and I mean the entire country and the media and so many other people, what happens is usually you see trigger-happy brinkmanship, like it happened in India. For as long as they were with the GST reform, that was good, goods and services tax. But now demonetization at a moment when the country doesn't have any inflation, that means for 6 months to 1 year, the country is plunged, or country's economy is plunged into a crisis mode. My concern right now would be that if we are always talking about reforms and we are not highlighting the specific sectors the way they should be, and there has to be some kind of proper mechanism for advocacy. Not a couple of think tanks, not a couple of government-sanctioned institutions. We don't even have economic journalism in this country.
So the point I'm trying to make is that if we do not put our house in order, despite your point, then when all this investment really comes in, I mean, there are estimates that by 2020, 1.5% of output would increase, and another 2020 to 2030, 1% of our economy is going to, our GDP is going to be additional, incrementally increase. Those are estimates. Are we really going to get those dividends that we are hoping with this investment, with all this hoopla and everything?
Yeah.
So the only way we can do that is by doing the nitty-gritty that is required to be done.
And we have to build capacity.
And when we do that, the available capacity will also starting bearing results, will also starting giving us the fruits that we should be getting. So the point is that we cannot run away from the hard work that is required.
That is true, but for that one needs imagination as well. And my question still is unanswered. Why has economy not been able to captivate our imagination, Shaban Saab? Why is it that nobody?
I disagree
don't hear
with
anybody
you.
talking about economy.
I actually disagree with you.
Okay.
And for the mere reason
Because you are a
that
businessman.
No, I'm not. I call a spade, and when things are not doing well, I call it that. I see myself that there's a lot of activity in the private sector, even right now as we speak, in trying to cash in this potential. But remember, how many people understand that CPEC is only one part of the One Belt, One Road project?
It is.
It is only one part. This CPEC is supposed to link to another railway line, which starts in China and goes all the way to Germany. So this is supposed to, if this in the longer picture gives us a route to Europe as well, because this links into that road. Okay. So having, not a lot of, as you said also, I agree with you partially. Let me be very clear on that. Partially, yes, we've not, because the information has not come to the private sector, and I think even maybe the government does not, because they're so busy with just CPEC, they don't understand the potential of this entire One Belt, One Road project, and we need to understand that this will create an access for us into the European market as well. It's not about just China getting access for their routes into Western China, which is now they want to, as I said earlier, I understand that they have enough development on the eastern side of China. They now want to develop the western side. True. And that is one part of why there's CPEC, because it is an easier route for them to get their goods and commodities into, and vice versa. They can buy from this. It's easier for them to get the
That's
the
why
fuels.
it's called a corridor. It goes both ways.
And now, coming back to the private sector, as I said already, remember, I will want you to understand, other than the last 2 years, before that, for the 7 years before that, there was no capacity, there was no reason for the private sector to develop, because everyone was going into the black holes. If you can only invest in research from your profits, but if there are no profits, there is going to be no research, number one. Now that has happened.
When you're running constantly in loss, usually you fold up. That didn't happen. That means somebody must be breaking even at least.
No, sir. Let me be very categoric here.
Why? That is quite selfless sacrifices for the country then.
Where have you not seen the textile industry in shutdown? I mean, I don't think...
But that was not because of the profits. That was primarily because of the energy crisis in the country. That
So
is, that now we are
everything put
taking care
together,
of.
they were, at the end of the day, they were making losses. Losses to the tune that they could not survive anymore. And they had to shut down. I know in the manufacturing sector, many industries that closed down. And I'd be surprised if in any industry, there were not at least 20 to 30% closures.
Okay.
Or they were running under capacity.
So now, for past 3 years, maybe you are breaking even, maybe you are earning profits. What is stopping you now?
I think 5 point...
Businessmen are supposed to be
let
sharks.
me tell you.
One of them is now ruling
You
America.
answered the question yourself in your initial opening statement, 5.4% GDP growth.
Okay. Yeah.
That already means the businesses are doing well for that kind of growth. Also, remember, a large part of our economy is not documented. So when you say 5.4, I will not be surprised if the actual number is over 6.
Okay. That's good. That is heartening.
So remember, so there is, and this growth has not happened from the government. This growth came from the private sector.
Naturally.
So that right there answers your question. Is there not innovation? Is there not progress? Is there not forward thinking by the private sector? There's all that.
If you're doing everything right, then the trouble then is maybe
I will tell you what the trouble is.
Maybe you
I will
don't
tell you where the
believe in
trouble is.
highlighting it or advertising it.
Then I will tell you where the trouble is. The trouble is the government not understanding that they need to do their business of running the government and not interfere in the business.
Okay. The government is interfering a lot.
For instance, I will tell you, you cannot compete with 7 cents a kilowatt unit hour anywhere in the world.
Okay.
I mean, we are being charged about 12 to 13 cents a kilowatt hour unit. Whereas the global, even around you, it's 7, 8 cents. That's about 50%.
Okay.
You cannot compete in such circumstances. So is that not the government's job to ensure that you have equal playing field?
Okay. So the government should be subsidizing in some ways?
That's their job. Did they not know? I will tell you. Did the government not know 10 years ago that if they do not fix the energy mix, we will be uncompetitive in international markets?
Well, we cannot.
Did they
go
not
back.
know? No, sir.
Hang on. The trouble at this moment, and you have to appreciate the situation here. You cannot have a time machine and go back in time and fix it. Whatever was done in the past has been done. You can say that the government in the future should be planning for betterment. You cannot say that the previous government didn't do it, that's why we don't have any hope, and we should be harping about the same thing.
I agree, but till the time the House, as Dr. Saab said, till the time we recognize that we need to put the House in order, and it is actually in order, you will not see the kind of progress. Given the circumstances that we have to do business with, as he rightly mentioned, regardless of law and order getting better, we still have a perception of law and order situation in this country.
Right.
There's no question, and there should be no doubt in anybody's mind, that people still hesitate to come to Pakistan.
Well, yes and no. My experience has been quite different, but I get what you're saying.
So,
remember, the Chinese Prime Minister told Pervez Musharraf at the time he was President of Pakistan, he told the former President that investors are like birds. They come one by one, and whenever there's a disruption, they leave en masse. And then once again, when they want to come back, one by one. So they'll be trickling down or trickling in of such investors.
Can I add to that point? I'll add to that point. You know, there was a point that you rightly mentioned, innovation. I agree that the innovation is not to the extent of that it should have been. Maybe. But remember, a lot of these countries that you now see technologically advanced, their model of investment was partnership with a local partner.
Okay.
Because that enhanced capacity locally, that created technology transfer, and even if they wanted to go away, that setup remained, that expertise remained, that equipment remained, and they were able to run it regardless of that foreign partner.
That's true.
That is very critical, and I think this is something the government has not even today understood, that you cannot rely entirely.
The government maybe understands it, because I've been through the meetings where it was discussed, transfer of technology, this kind of agreements where the local partner is also engaged.
Is in short, in short.
May I need a clarification from you? You were using the word R&D. R&D, that you were basically talking
Research and
about, that
development.
research and development is not being done. But what exactly is in your mind when you use the word R&D? What do you expect business to do in R&D?
Well, I used two things. I didn't say R&D alone, but I also mentioned documentation or research separately about the potentialities, about the capacity. R&D is also important. When I want to launch any kind of technology, am I using or creating an environment where people can research and improve upon that technology? If I'm making television in this country, I don't know whether we are making now any television at all or not.
We are.
Are we working to upgrade it and make it more competitive in the world?
It means that you
India-
are
India.
talking about basic research.
Both.
No, there's a difference between the two now. When you're talking about basic research and you're talking of applied research.
I'm talking
They-
about both.
Both. Basic research, even China is not doing much. Okay?
Why do they say that
are
India and
doing
China
more-
are killing other countries?
No, they are doing applied research more. As Shaban has rightly pointed out, they are going with joint ventures. Okay, bulk of the basic research is done by the Western world.
Okay.
Now this thing should be clear in our mind. Okay, when we're using and we are basically blaming the private sector that they are not spending money on R&D. Even Chinese companies are not. I can give you the figures also. How much money they are spending on R&D and how much money they are spending on applied research and basic research. Basic research is a very high risk business.
Okay.
Nobody puts money into it. Okay, businessmen are street smart, whether they are Chinese or Pakistani.
Okay.
If it makes sense to them, they are going to work. If return on investment is not there, probability of losing money is high, they're not going to put money into it.
So we should say that as long as we don't have foreign partners, we should forget about the product upgradation,
Look,
the improvement in quality.
You have in central Punjab.
I was a kid, sir. I was a kid when I was told that Pakistan exports footballs, surgery items. Pakistan actually exports clothes. And Pakistan, exports commodities, unprocessed commodities. So far, I haven't heard anything new.
So
No, meat, been ages.
poultry, meat,
And if you talk
agriculture,
about
and private
this,
sector.
I mean to say,
Agricultural produced products.
No,
Yeah.
if you look about the consumer goods which has been produced by the central Punjab, in Gujranwala, in Gujarat, they are making these fans, they are making these washing machines, maybe a very basic items which they are making.
Right.
But they are
Bandar
going
Sahib, don't
up.
get me wrong. I'm not actually trying to pin the blame only on the private sector.
Yes.
My question at the start was, what is wrong with our imagination, collective imagination? And I'm appreciate this. I'm putting my own profession in front of you and accusing it of neglect. My own journalist friends don't discuss economy on television.
Actually, any economic development, if there is any lack, more of the blame should be apportioned to the state. If you look at the development journey anywhere in the world, whether it's China,
and that's why state is the most favorite whipping boy
No, I'm not saying-
of investors everywhere. I'm told that we have to conclude the program.
Let me just make a statement. Our imagination has been hostage to conformance.
Okay. Yeah, but then it ceases to be imagination then.
there's something cultural thing we are talking about.
But on that note, I have to actually conclude the program. Dr. Shumail Dawood, thank you very much, sir, for being part of the program. Shaban, Khalid Saab, always a pleasure having you here. Zia Bande Saab, thank you very much, sir, as well. Viewers, you have listened to our participants. Pakistan is just starting to explore the avenues of economic development in this country. We must have done something in the past as well, but somehow, given that we are not that much fond of writing it down, leaving behind memoirs or any kind of documentation for that matter, maybe we haven't been able to do justice. But now, there is an emphasis on reform. There is an emphasis on improvement as well. The only pitfall that one sees is the example of India that has just gone for, taking away the currency from the market, a huge chunk of it, and has plunged the economy into a crisis. We cannot become that kind of a revolutionary that we bring down whatever is standing at this moment. It is important that the government builds synergies. One has to expect it from the government as well. But then one has to see some amount of reciprocity from the private sector, from the intelligentsia. And at this moment, I tell you one thing about the intellectuals in this country, that most of them, especially who are looking into the matters relating to economy, they end up being advisors to international donors, international organizations. And whosoever is not finance minister of Pakistan or associated with the government usually is very critical. I've seen people writing letters to IMF challenging government of Pakistan's numbers, even though they were themselves working for the state of Pakistan only a few years ago. So one has to actually understand the potential and work on it. This was today's program. Thank you very much for watching us. Take care.